what is the theme? And this is the last Tales of 2022. So we'll see you back in 2023. But, you know, sometimes I feel as if my hair is on fire and I just want to stand on the roof and say, now what? Then I remember what Abraham Lincoln said in his December 1st, 1862 message to Congress. He talked about acting individually and in concert. And to me, storytelling is part of that acting in concert that helps knit a community together. So I'm going to get right to it. I'm going to introduce the tellers with the quote they have chosen. Here is the first quote. Sometimes painful endings bring the best new beginnings. Welcome Harry Hart-Browne, our first teller.
And just a quick reminder, Harry, I'm going to invite you to unmute. Hit that little button on the bottom.
Sorry. Am I unmuted?
You are good.
Thank you, Pastor Aaron. As I was saying. Oh, okay. Thank you, Anne, very, very much. I'm very happy to be here. I'd also like to thank Roxanne Reese. Now what? I have had some now whats. I remember years ago, I said to myself, Harry, could it be you might be watching a little too much television? Could you possibly be using your time a little more creatively? That problem was soon solved because I came home a few nights later and the television was gone. I'd been burglarized. I thought, well, good, now I can use my time more creatively. But hey, I've been burglarized. Now what? I had some extra money, so I hired a man to come over and assess my place for bars on the windows and a security door. He walked in. I was intimidated immediately. He was like a little New Yorkie tough guy with a beret. He reminded me of Jimmy Cagney. He took some measurements, handed me a paper. There's your estimate. I see you got a Seth book on your table. That's that channeled material. I've heard about it. I like Krishnamurti. Krishnamurti's very deep, but also very easy to understand. And he walked away. He came back a few days later, did the job, handed me a paper, the bill, and then a book. It's the Bhagavad Gita. I thought you might like it. Keep it. I have another one at home. I like this book. It had that wonderful St. Francis of Assisi prayer in it, where there is darkness, let me sow light, where there's hatred, let me sow love, so on and so on. And I began reading that prayer out loud every morning, really feeling the words. And that became the beginning of my meditation practice. Thank you, Jimmy Cagney. Thank you, burglar. It's good I was meditating because I soon found out that my new next door neighbor was extremely violent. And one night I heard him brutally attacking his family members and I called the police. They rushed over, hauled him off to the slammer and released him a few days later. Bang, bang on my new security door. Bang. You're the one who called the cops on me and I promise you I will send you to the hospital or the grave. Now what? Well, I have to contact the police. He threatened my life and I'm freaked out. And Harry, I said, perhaps now might be a good time to meditate. Oh yeah, I have to center. Where there's darkness, let me sow light. I finally relaxed. And when I did, I had a vision. It was a large window with a beautiful tree outside, swaying in the breeze and sparkling in the sunlight. I started to move toward it when I stopped because my attention was drawn to my left where I saw a large stuffed moose head mounted on the wall. I felt a calm love. I petted the soft nose and put my attention back to the window. I came out of the meditation, went to the police station, told my story. The policeman said, yeah, well, technically that is verbal assault. What do you want me to do? I said, well, do you think I should press charges? He said, do you really think pressing charges will help your neighbor become a nicer person? I said, well, he said, why don't you move? I said, why don't I move? He said, yes, Mohammed can't always go to the mountain. Sometimes the mountain has to go to Mohammed. And he walked away. Now what? He left my neighbor's rap sheet on the counter right in front of me. I leafed through it. Pages of crimes, followed by a policeman's note. This individual is extremely dangerous. There is no crime he would not commit. I turned back to the first page and I saw a list of his aliases. Roger Ellis, AKA Roger Brett Ellis, AKA Roger Moose Ellis, AKA Roger Moose, AKA Moose. I moved, and my first week in my wonderful new neighborhood, I was invited to a meditation gathering, and the first thing I saw when I walked in was the big window with the tree outside swaying and sparkling. Thank you, policeman. Thank you, Moose. Then things got weird again a few years later. I had moved again. Now I had a stressful job and I really needed my rest. And of course, my upstairs neighbor walked heavily over my head off and on all night long. I mentioned this to him and he said, oh yeah, well, you know, my footsteps are heavy because I wear cowboy boots. I said, oh, I see. Well, do you think you'd be nice enough to perhaps consider removing your cowboy boots maybe after 11 at night because you're waking me out of sound sleeps? He said, I like wearing my cowboy boots. I moved to the living room. I started sleeping on the couch, and another neighbor on the other side of the wall right next to me was a methamphetamine addict. And he often vacuumed, sometimes at 3 o'clock in the morning, sometimes banging the vacuum into the wall next to me and screaming, God damn it! I went back to the bedroom, only to notice that hornets had burrowed their way through my bedroom wall, and now there were hundreds and hundreds of hornets in a nest on top of my bedroom ceiling. And then I got a cancer diagnosis. It was a perfect storm, but to what? I ended up getting a surgery. I was fine. But before I did that, I went to see a shamanic healer, Amanda Folger. Amanda said, there's a part of you that needs your attention. I see him as a child and he's full of joy and laughter, good cheer. He's creative and adventurous and mischievous, and he's fearless. And he loves to have fun and play. I suggest you welcome him back into your life. And I played, and I wrote a play about my spiritual life, and I found a quiet home, and I no longer had a stressful job. I started making my living as a storyteller, and I'm still doing it 26 years later. Thank you, cancer. Thank you, Amanda. Thank you, hornets. Thank you, cowboy boots. So now I look around and I see lots of endings and lots of unknown new beginnings. Huge now what's. And what am I doing? I'm still watching too much television. I watch the news. And of course, I empathize with the suffering I see, but I cannot stay in that anguish for very long because then I become debilitated and that does no one any good. So I hoist my vibes up to that feeling of calm love, and I beam it to where it's needed. Not always successfully. I struggle. I sink into dark places frequently, but I also have breakthroughs. I was so proud of myself the other day. I was driving home so angry. The mechanic had not fixed the car. He tried 3 times and it was a computer issue. I know he was doing his best, but the light kept coming on the dashboard and I was over it. And Harry, I stopped myself intervening on my own behalf. Let it go. It will get fixed. Think about something that makes you happy. I did. I hoisted up my vibes. And I started thinking about these adorable French bulldog videos that I've been watching on YouTube. And my spirits lightened. And the moment they did, the voice on the car radio said, French bulldogs are popular now. Later that week, I took my car to another mechanic. He fixed it. And he also mentioned that he had a French bulldog. I thought that was so cool. I told a whole classroom of kids that, and afterwards the teacher, Josh, showed me his phone and pointed to the photograph of his French bulldog. I thought, are these synchronicities like high fives from the universe because I managed to hoist up my vibes? If so, thank you. So now my now whats are keeping those vibes up as best as I can. Staying open to those high fives, staying open to that calm love, and always saying, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Harry. Thank you, Harry.
Welcome. Thank you. Thank you, Anne.
Well, I need that kind of encouragement because I certainly flop around a bit in my life too, emotionally. I'm going to give you the next quote. It's from Senator Mitch McConnell. Said, nevertheless, she persisted after the US Senate voted to make Senator Elizabeth Warren stop speaking. Welcome, Vicki Juditz. Unmute.
Thank you, Anne. And I could have actually used that quote that you had at the beginning from Lincoln, as you'll see in my story. It's 2007, and I am at an Earth Day festival in Santa Monica. I go to one of the booths and there's a flyer, and it says, May 20th, 10 a.m., Stop Global Warming March and Rally, LA City Hall. I read and reread these words incredulous. I mean, 2007. Oh, okay. I have bought a Prius. I've changed all my light bulbs. I've taken out my lawn. I've become a vegetarian. I do hang clothes on the line. I use the cloth bags. I brush my teeth with baking soda. I flush my toilet with bath water. But I have been waiting. I've been waiting for somebody to climb atop a vegetable oil fueled station wagon and lead the eco believers into a Green New Day. And now at last, it looks like May 20th, the beginning of the revolution. On the morning of the big day, I wake my kid and they say, I don't want to go. I say, you can't stop global warming if you're asleep. I have a stomach ache. We live in a free country. Do you understand what that means? My leg is hurting. I think it might be broken. It means that we have the right, no, the moral obligation to protest. Mom, I'm 9. Well, thank God. When we marched against the war in Iraq, I had to carry you. My kid whimpers, no doubt, remembering how I carried them on my shoulders till my back gave out. I had to set them down. They walked in a crowd of thousands in very real danger of being crushed. I say, don't cry. You are so much taller now. They wail. And this brings my husband on the run from his home office. I say, I am not backing down on this. Democracy only works if you make your voice heard. He hesitates, then nods. I know. He is only taking my side because he has hockey tickets and he doesn't want to babysit, but I say, thank you. And I say to my kid, we need to make our signs. My kid groans, but they get out of bed, they put on some clothes, and they join me in the kitchen. I sketch solar panels and windmills on my poster paper. And very soon, a vibrant landscape inhabited by monkeys, jaguars, three-toed sloths appears on my kids' poster paper. Save the rainforest, stop global warming, they scroll across a vermilion sky. They're coming around. I toss the signs into the hatch of my Prius and I drive us to Universal train station. Now, just about a week before this, 500,000 people marched in downtown Los Angeles for immigration reform. So I'm thinking, well, how many more people will show up to save the planet? I mean, parking will be a nightmare. We had better take the train. So we get to the station, we catch the train, we get off at Civic Center. We're heading up the steps, we've got our signs. I'm kind of singing under my breath, we shall overcome someday. And we get to the top of the steps, we get to Hill Street's wide sidewalk, and something's wrong, terribly wrong. There is not one person anywhere. And for 1 second, one panicky moment, I am certain that Los Angeles has been hit by a weapon of mass destruction and only people who were underground in the subway like us survived. My kid says, Mom, did you get the wrong day? Was it last year? I know, they are referring to the vegan potluck fiasco. The time I spotted an eco-networking event online, baked a root casserole, drove us to Pasadena, knocked on a stranger's door, only to be told I had misread the notice online. The get-together had already gotten together, same date, same time, the previous year. I say, no, I did not make a mistake. The revolution is today. Just then, we see this middle-aged woman in a Sierra Club t-shirt turn the corner and start toward us, and I call out, hey, where's the march? And she says, I was going to ask you. Oh, I say, is there anybody else here? Well, my friend Stephen, he's over at City Hall. I'm Hilda. We introduce ourselves, and Hilda and my kid and I walk along Hill and then First Street over to City Hall. And there is Stephen, her friend, tall, thin, gray ponytail. He's standing on the steps of City Hall, strumming his guitar and singing plaintively into a microphone, mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the savior of us all? Pathetic. Except for Hilda and Stephen and my kid and me, that vast plaza is empty. And then I hear chanting, stop global warming, clean air now. And I turn back toward First Street, just as this ragtag band of about 25 souls appears. Gray-haired folks in Sierra Club t-shirts, they're holding handmade signs. One man is wearing a jellyfish costume and combat boots. A woman is dressed as a shrub, and there's a man on stilts. I think of that movie Amarcord by Fellini. The bizarrely comic townspeople make their way to the village square to enact the rites of spring. I'm thinking any minute, one of this crew is gonna pull out an effigy of the old witch of winter and set it aflame. We're all mad at times, one of the characters in that film says. The Sierra Club protesters make their way to the City Hall steps. They continue to chant. Stephen strums his guitar. Jellyfish, shrub, and the man on stilts dance. And my kid says, now what? Should we go home? No, look, there's a book. It's called Fahrenheit 451. And in that novel, all the books have been ordered burned, but the rebels memorize their favorite books. Each person can recite an entire book, and they go into hiding, waiting for their precious knowledge to be appreciated. And one of them says, well, you can't make people listen. They have to come around in their own time. I know there are just a few people here, but next time there'll be more, a lot more. The thing is to make a start. I take my kid's hand, and together the two of us and Hilda make our way toward the steps to add our voices to the chorus. Now, this was 2007, And in the years after that, my kid complained more and more about going on protests. They finally refused to go at all. That was mom's thing. But in 2020, there were the George Floyd protests. And at this time, my kid is living in New York City. And my kid calls me up and says, Mom, you know, my roommate won't go to the protest. They never did anything like that. They don't know what to expect. Thank you for teaching me how to stand up for what's right. I'm going to go, and I'm not afraid.
Thank you, Vicki. Oh my goodness. Just take a minute to absorb that. Our next teller has a quote from Michael Beckwith. You're not the body, you have a body. You're not the mind, you have a mind. You are an avenue of awareness that is conscious of the body. You are an avenue of awareness that is conscious of the mind. Welcome, Vicki Dello Joio.
Thank you so much, Anne. It's August 25th. The year is 2017. I'm standing next to the body of my mother in a hospital bed at her senior residence. She died about a couple of hours ago. I've been waiting for the funeral director to come and collect her body, but they've been delayed. I've done everything I can think of to do. I've said my goodbyes. I've taken the photographs off of the wall of the members that I've put up there, and I've taken her cat back down to her apartment. So now I'm just waiting. Then I remember there's one more thing I need to do. Slowly, I take the watch off of her wrist and I put it in my pocket. My mother was really fanatic about time. It was super important to her. Being on time was the same thing as being early. That is to say, we're going out to dinner, let's go a half an hour early. So we're at the movies 2 hours early, so what? It's fine, we can just talk, we can visit. Time was of the essence for her. A few years, about 5 years before she died, she developed some dementia. So she started to call me 14, 16, sometimes 18 times, pretty much every day. Hi, Vicki. What time is it? Hi, honey. What time is it? Vicki, I feel like my brain is melting. What time? Vicki, I've been trying to get this stupid piece of plastic to work. I'm trying to turn on the television. I know there's a button here that'll turn it on, but it's not going on. Can you help me? Hi, Vicki. I just woke up and I couldn't think of anybody's number, but I know yours, 510-325-0993. So I called you because I looked at my watch and it says 6 o'clock, but when I look outside, I can't tell. Is it evening? Is it morning? Am I late for dinner? Am I early for breakfast? What time is it? About 5 weeks before she dies, I get a call from her senior residence. An aide has found her in the middle of the night on the floor next to her bed where she fell. They've rushed her to the emergency room. I rushed there too. She seems like she's okay, but the x-rays show that there's a twist in her colon. Your mother's gonna need surgery, the doctor says. I mean, otherwise, this condition is terminal. No surgery, my mother says. Absolutely not. Why aren't you talking to me? Why are you talking to her? I'm right here. I'm 94 years old. I mean, I've had a long life. I don't want to suffer more. And I know surgery is suffering because I've done it before. So no surgery. I feel really fortunate that I've had conversations about these possibilities even before my mother developed dementia. So I know what to do to support her. They bring her back in an ambulance, back to her senior residence, and then they carry her up to the 22nd floor, which is a designated hospital floor. I go to visit every day. Oh, Vicki, you're so beautiful. I love you. What's happening? Oh, Mama, well, you fell and they took you to the emergency room and then they told you that you needed to have surgery. No surgery. Right, that's what you said. So the thing is that this condition is terminal. So what's happening is you're dying. Oh. Okay, so it's over. It's over. Well, it had to happen sometime. I mean, I've lived a really long life. I've had a lot of great experiences. I made the right decision. It's okay. I'm okay. What matters is that you and we can spend this time now, right? I don't mind. Do you mind? We have this conversation again and again and again. Every time she wakes up, every day she wakes up, she says the same thing. And I have to kind of pump myself up to tell this person who I've loved my entire life, Mama, you're dying. This goes on day after day, week after week after week. I'm starting to feel kind of worn down. The nurse comes into the hospital room. She says, you know, your mother's really strong. She hasn't had anything to eat for weeks. I mean, she hasn't had anything to drink for days. People don't usually last this long, you know. She's strong. She's really something. Yeah, she is. She's really something. And I'm getting tired. I go to see a friend who's a coach and also a psychic. She says she's got this image of my mother pulling on a cord that's connected to her body, trying to lift out of her body so she can leave. A few days later, I'm sitting at her bedside. She's sleeping. So I go into a meditation. I have this kind of waking dream, and then I have that vision. I can see my mother is pulling on this rope. She's pulling and pulling, and she looks at me and she said, Vicki, this cord, I've got to get it out of the body. I can't do it. You've got to help me. I look and I see that there's this rope that's coming down, and at the bottom of the cord, I can see all these little threads, thousands, maybe millions of them. Each one is connecting to a different cell in her body. Every single cell has its own memory. Look, she's making lasagna for Thanksgiving. Oh my gosh, she was trying to cut my brother's toenails. He was a little baby and he wasn't having any of it. Oh, I don't know what that is, but wow. Look, Mama, I say, I think if you look and you see that there's these threads here connecting, I think if you try pulling them out one at a time, instead of trying to pull the whole cord out at once, it'll be easier. She begins. I sit, I witness my mama letting go of her life. The next day, I am completely exhausted. I feel like this has been going on forever. I mean, I wake up at home and I'm just like, I'm done. I need a break. I mean, this is going on. The nurse was really right. Basically, she's super strong. She's going to live forever. I'm going to spend the rest of my life here in her or there in her room. And I'm going to just waiting for her to die. Oh, I tell my wife, Sherry, I need to go, honey. I need to do something different. I need a break. I'm going to do some errands. The phone rings. The nurse says, Vicki, her breathing has changed. It looks like she won't be here much longer. You better get here as fast as you can. I run down and I jump into my car. I only live 10 minutes away, and I drive onto the freeway where it's rush hour. Come on, let's go. Come on, we got to go. I don't have much time. Can I get around you? What can I? Many times I've said, you know what? Your mom is going to leave in her own timing. She's just going to, whether you're there or not, it's not up to you. Your work is just to let go. But still, I feel like I promised. Then I hear her voice as clearly as when I used to call her on the cell phone to say, hi, Mom, I'm going to be a little late for dinner. Her voice in my ear says, Vicki, don't worry. There's a lot of traffic there. Be careful. Don't get into an accident. Just take your time. And when you get here, I'll be here. I get to the residence. I am waiting for that very slow elevator until finally it comes and carries me up to the 22nd floor where the hospital room is. I run into the room and she's breathing like a marathon runner, faster, 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 faster. I begin to pray. I say, Mama, I'm going to miss you, but it's okay to go. Please, it's okay. You're doing great. This is such hard work, but you can do this. I know you can. I love you. Mama, I thank you. 15 minutes later, she's gone. So now I'm waiting for that funeral director to come collect her body. It's starting to get a little cold. She wouldn't like it that he's running late. I take out a watch, her watch. I feel like I've entered a time out of time. It's not too early, not too late. And then I feel, now, what? Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, thank you, Vicki. I couldn't find myself to say, I couldn't find myself. Thank you, Vicki. Thank you so much. Let's take a moment. Okay. The next teller has a quote from Anais Nin. We don't see things as they are. We see them as we are. Welcome, Arnold Bloch. Good to see you again.
Thank you very much, Anne. It's really delightful to be a part of this wonderful storytelling collective. Now what? Welcome to Baltimore. She extended her dark-skinned hand towards me in a gesture of greeting. The other hand held tightly onto the bag of mail that she was delivering to Heather Ridge, the new condominium complex that was my new home. I'll be delivering your mail, and I know everyone here. My name is Felicia, and I hope you'll be happy. To Felicia, this greeting was just another pleasantry. For me, a layer of racist indoctrination had just peeled off and drifted to the floor. 60 years ago, by the age of 5, I was already a young racist. Of course, I didn't know it. How many people walk around saying, I'm a racist. I hate black people. I hate homosexuals. I hate everybody but me. Most people say, I'm perfectly fine and just. It's those people over there who have the problem. As a good friend of mine, an African-American preacher, likes to joke, everybody but me gonna burn in hell. Born in the belly of apartheid in South Africa 60 years ago, by the age of 5, I already believed that black people were lower than white people. The maid who worked in our home scrubbed the floors on hands and knees, cooked our food, and cleaned up my mess. She knew to call me master or boss, even though she was old enough to be my mother. There was no conversation between us ever, just yes, master, or no, boss. In that mix of African tongue and English that she had to learn to get a bare skin and bones job. She knew never to look me in the eye. Now, I was officially declared a white person, and I'm going to show you this identity document, the Republic of South Africa identity document, which inside has a very important piece of paper. It reads, I hope you can read it, it says Arnold Bloch is a white person. And having been officially declared white, entitled me to many privileges: an excellent education, good food, good medicine, and the right to swim in the local town swimming pool, our town called Potchefstroom, while the African children, the black children, stood outside staring longingly through the fence under the whites only sign. As I swam in the pool, it never occurred to me to wonder, why am I in here and they're outside? It just seemed perfectly natural. I had already started to become deaf to the suffering of black people. On the street, I would sometimes see an African man being beaten by his master or boss, slapped over the head, and I would automatically assume that the servant must have done something to deserve it. In school, in a class called guidance, my guidance teacher, in a thick Dutch South African accent, repeatedly drummed this into my head. Remember, if you give the Kasper a finger, he will take your whole hand. Now, the word Kasper, like the N-word in America, was a word meaning non-believer, and was a demeaning word to dehumanize black people, to turn us against them, and to make sure that we feared them but did not feel their pain. 60 years later, I find myself living in Pikesville, Baltimore. And here, the population is mostly African American and Orthodox Jewish white people. 60 years later, I'm learning to listen and feel. Close by at the 7 Mile Market on Reisterstown Road, there's a store which serves food, kosher food, to Jewish people. The tellers in the store are mostly African Americans, whereas the customers are mostly Orthodox Jewish white people. Did you find what you need, Mrs. Bortz? Thank you very much. I hope you're feeling better. Yes, I am, dear. Everyday niceties. For them, these everyday niceties are just good customer service. For me, for each nicety, another layer of racial indoctrination falls to the ground. The other day at the Chesler Framing Company, I presented a painting I had bought to the African American man behind the desk. He looked at it and said, "This is going to cost about $800 to frame." Oh, I groaned. I only paid $250 for it. He looked me in the eye and he heard my pain. He said, "Hold on a second." He went back to the board full of wooden frame parts, painstakingly sorting through them, went to the computer, was tapping away at some numbers. He came back and said, you know, I think I can do this for you for 500 and it'll look good. We shook hands as another layer of indoctrination melted away. Sometimes in Baltimore, I'm a little inattentive because of all the new things to see, and I reversed into a man driving a Nissan Titan truck. He stepped out of the truck with his dark-skinned arms raised in the air. I said, "I'm so sorry. I just didn't see you." We moved over to the side. The more we talked, the better it felt. I said to him, "Would you mind if we kept this off the insurance record? I'd like to try and keep my rates down." He looked me in the eye and he said, "Yeah, I can do that for you. I'll get an estimate and I'll get back to you." We shook on the deal and another layer fell. Now I can always tell which of the homes here in Pikesville are occupied by Jewish people because they all have this affixed to the doorpost. It's called a Mezuzah, and it's affixed at an angle. I don't know if you can see it, but it contains a parchment on which is written some prayers. And the most important prayer is one called the Shema. And it reads, "Shema ad Hashem Eloheinu ad Hashem Echad," which means, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one." The Lord is one. It doesn't say the Lord is great or the Lord is all-powerful. It says the Lord is one. Why one? This bold proclamation reminds us of a single indivisible truth, that we're all connected. Note as well that the Shema, which is sung all over the world, doesn't say, "See, O Israel," or "Look, O Israel." It says, "Hear, O Israel." We are beckoned to listen for the interconnectedness between all of us. And it sounds something like this when it's sung. Shema Yisrael, Ad Hashem Elokeinu, Ad Hashem Echad. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. We're beckoned to listen for the oneness beyond me versus you, us versus them, towards what I like to call undefended listening. Me and you, us and them. So here in Baltimore, 60 years later, I'm trying to listen. Not only to the things that I already agree with, but to the things that are difficult to hear. For example, despite the 1968 Federal Fair Housing Act, which was passed to try and prevent federal housing discrimination based on race, gender, national origin, or sex, I discovered that many politicians and real estate brokers conspired to keep blacks and Jews out of certain neighborhoods. Some of these real estate brokers were themselves Jews. Jews against Jews. Jews against blacks. Everyone fighting over their piece of turf. This is painful to listen to, painful to feel, but I must if I'm to be part of any healing. Maybe things are getting better. Just the other day, as I was walking out of Macy's, an African-American customer, a woman, opened the door for me. I said, "Thank you very much." She said, "You're welcome." She looked me straight in the eyes. This was no servant. This was one person to another. To her, this was just a basic courtesy. For me, another layer of racist indoctrination fell to the ground. Now, I was going to end my story at this point, but for two things that happened recently. I think I'm being followed. Just the other day, coming back from Los Angeles at 1 a.m., the Baltimore International Airport, trying to fool myself to thinking that I'm still 25 years old, even though I'm 65. I was dragging a heavy case behind me, as I'm not supposed to do, up the stair, the escalator, and I lost control. The case went tumbling, I tripped and fell, and there I lay, face up, head down, feet up, flattened on the escalator as it continued to move upwards at an angle of 40 degrees. My wife at the top of the stairs looked down in horror, wondering whether I was going to be chewed up by the teeth of that escalator. I couldn't move. I was completely helpless. When suddenly I felt two strong hands under my shoulders. I was lifted up in the air and propped safely at the top of the stairs. In that mix of fear and salvation, I was filled with gratitude towards my dark-skinned angel. He looked me over and said, "Are you okay?" I said, "Yes, I am," still stunned at what might have happened to me if I'd been chewed up by those metal teeth. "You sure you're okay, sir?" I said, "I'm fine." And off he went as a huge blanket of indoctrination crashed to the ground. And then just the other day, on a typical hot, humid day, I was walking down a street after dropping my car off to be repaired, when I stepped into a smoothie bar and ordered a kale and spinach smoothie to cool myself down. About halfway through the smoothie, I asked the waitress for a takeout cup, and as I was pouring my smoothie into the cup, I heard a stern voice behind me. "I'm sorry, you can't take that alcoholic beverage out of this facility." I was stunned. I turned around and looked up. It was the African-American manager. An old thought coursed through my brain. Who is he to tell me what to do? And then I saw the twinkle in his eye, and we both began to laugh and laugh and laugh. He was the manager. Of course, he knew there was no alcohol in that drink. As I walked out of the smoothie store, I was filled with joy as a huge mountain of cold racist indoctrination cascaded down. Today in Baltimore, I'm learning to listen to it all, the joy and the pain. Shema Ad Hashem Eloheinu, Ad Hashem Echad. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Arnold. Just takes a while to absorb these. What blessings they are. Our next quote is from Michelangelo. "The way I create a sculpture is I take a block of marble and remove anything that isn't the sculpture." Welcome, Debbie Kasper.
Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. Thank you, Anne, for having me. You know, it occurred to me the other day that most people never find the love of their life. And maybe they give up, stop looking, grow old alone, or worse, settle for some lesser love. Others, I've heard, find it way too young. They break it, throw it away, and they just stomp on it, and then spend the rest of their lives pining over that love, that feeling. I found my one true love just as he was dying. Now, Pat and I had been together for 25 years, but I'm one of those people who spent most of those 25 years pining over my first love, thinking that he was the love of my life, my college boyfriend, because the feelings were so painful. The love was painful. The breakup, it almost killed me. It was the kind of relationship that takes you forever to get over, or almost forever. I mean, it was crazy. So that's what I thought love was. And it was fine with me because I didn't want a big relationship anyway. I wanted the career. I didn't want to get married. I didn't want to have kids. I actually was never a very maternal person. Even as a kid, if you gave me a doll, I'd pull out the arms and do skits with it, because making people laugh, that's what filled up my heart. And I really did not want kids. I wanted the career. I knew I couldn't have both, because having kids, you have to pay attention to them. And I was way too self-absorbed for that. I know that didn't stop many others, but I'm a narcissist with a conscience. So I spent many years after that relationship keeping love away from me. I never wanted to feel that way again. So by the time Pat and I met, we were already both tiptoeing into our 40s. Well, he said he was 40, and I just kind of vaguely nodded and went, yeah, me too. I lied. Truth is, I'd been 40 for so long, for all I knew, I was 50 by now. I'd come to Los Angeles a couple years before to find that big career that would finally just fill me up and complete me. So Pat and I started dating, and he wasn't really my type. He was nice and he was uncomplicated and he was not damaged in any way. And he just adored me right away, which frightened me. And he chased me and he wooed me and he swept me off my feet. And I did fall in love as best as I could, but always with the other boyfriend in the back of my mind. I was so rusty when we started dating that on our first dinner together, I blurted out, "I'm not having kids, you know." And he shot back, "Well, then I'm not getting hair plugs." He always made me laugh, which I think is one of the greatest gifts you can give someone. And he just presented his love to me like this rose with no thorns. It was just so pure. And I didn't know about that. Still, I thought love needed to be crazy. I'm not saying we never fought, because we did. I mean, he was Sicilian and I'm thin crust, so, it wasn't always easy. Well, about 10 years into our relationship, he gets diagnosed with throat cancer. And at that moment, he turns to me and he says, "Honey, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I have to put you through this." I kind of fell in love with him all over again right there. I'd never met anybody who put another person's life before theirs. So we battled it together, the chemo, the radiation, the operation, the midnight runs to the hospital when his temperature spiked, and he lived. But he never really recovers from the cancer treatment. And for the next decade, on and off, he's sick, in bed, out of bed, he's sick. And nobody can diagnose it. Nobody can pinpoint except to say that he's got post-cancer sickness. So about 20 years into, we're celebrating our 20th anniversary. So around 20 years into our life together with Pat chronically ill, we both surrendered to our lives as Pat being a sick person. And I'd kind of turned into this person I didn't know, never really wanted to be, a person who was starting to put someone else's life before mine. So they couldn't figure out what was wrong with him until he got sicker. finally, they find out. He has pancreatic cancer, stage 4. And that's when I knew. It struck me immediately, like one of those characters in a cartoon that gets hit in the head with a pan and their head takes on the shape of the pan. That's how obvious it was to me that he was the love of my life. He was my one true love. And I also knew at that moment that he was going to die. So together again, we battle the chemo and the radiation and the trips to the pharmacy back and forth, and myriad doctors and all the forms that we have to fill out, and rushing him to ER in the middle of the night and rushing to the pharmacy again and back to the ER and spoon feeding him and wiping his brow and doling out dozens of medicines several times a day and holding his hand and making him laugh. Finally, I was a nurturer. Finally, I was a mother. And he and I were both kind of shocked how good I actually was at it. The last night in the hospital with Pat, I was overwhelmed by how many things had remained unsaid between us. The 20 years had just gone by so fast. So I take his hand and I say, honey, I have to tell you. You do know that I'm 3 years older than you think I am, right? And he smiles, he nods, he knew. And then I say, you also know that you're the love of my life, right? And he nods and he gives me a duh look. I'm waiting for him to say it back. He'd never said it to me before. And I'm waiting, but there are no more words. He doesn't speak. After he passed, all of my girlfriends just surround me and envelop me with this love. The way penguins do, they surround their wounded and just love them until they can walk again on their own. And I think about putting my career back together, but it is so far in my rear view mirror. All I can see is a car accident states behind me. So I try to write a little, but nothing drops on the page except 1,000 tears of disappointment. Then a friend treats me to a psychic, a medium, LA. And I go in hopes to talk to Pat, but I'm cynical. I'm sitting there like this with the, you got a lot to prove to me, lady, kind of a look. And she starts talking to the air. Oh, okay. And then she says to me, Patrick wants you to know how very much he loved you. And I'm like, really? That's all you got? Tell me something that only he and I could possibly know. Tell me where the winning lottery ticket is. Ask him how to use the goddamn remote. I can't watch television. She says, no. He wants me to tell you that you're the love of his life too. It was her inflection, the phrasing. It was him talking to me as soon as he possibly could respond. He trembled a little and he said, well, ask him now what I am. What should I be? I don't know what I am. And she said, he says, you know, just write. It'll all come. Just don't write about me, he said. So I started writing and writing about him and other things. And so now here I am at the beginning of a whole whatever, and I'm afraid. But the 25 years with Pat taught me something about fear. You just don't stop. You don't stop and decorate. You keep moving, because on the other side of that fear is everything. One of my girlfriends suggests that I might want to do a little nurturing of me. And I agree. And then I say, I just happen to know a great nurturer. Thank you.
Oh, Debbie, I'm so glad you wrote that. Thank you for bringing that to us. Thanks so much. I just, it's so funny when you said you were self-absorbed, not paying attention. And Arnold had just talked about having to listen. And then you said, I didn't know about that, which was interesting, how we only know the love we've experienced. And it's thank you for surrendering to your lives together. We have one more teller, and she is quoting Mark Twain. Life does not consist mainly or even largely of facts or happenings. It consists mainly of the storm of thoughts forever flowing through one's head. Was he talking to me? Welcome, Monica Piper.
I was only 6.5, but I remember watching Yankee games with my father on our black and white TV. Aunt Rose, Uncle Hammy, and my cousin Maida had a fancy color TV. They were rich. They had the first of everything. They only lived 3 floors below us in the same apartment building in the Bronx, but Aunt Rose wasn't a baseball fan. There always seemed to be something more worth watching. No, Hammy, we can't watch baseball. It's the Esther Williams Aqua Spectacular. Dad and I didn't mind, as long as we watched the Yanks. Greatest team in baseball, kid. Then one day he announced, it's time you saw him in person. You and me, kid, we're going to Yankee Stadium. We got there early to watch them warm up. My father nudged me. Here they come. And out they trotted. Moose, Whitey, Yogi, Billy, Hank. Then, in a voice just above a whisper, over there, kid, it's the Mick. And with one turn of the head, my world would change. I'd seen Mickey Mantle before, but in black and white, and he was 6 inches tall. But there, bathed in sunlight, with his broad shoulders and golden hair and eyes as blue as the seats in Yankee Stadium, was this perfect being. I don't know if a 6.5-year-old can fall in love, but I fell into something. During the game, his bat cracked. He hit a homer. The crowd went nuts. I screamed at the top of my lungs, swept up in the thrill. Daddy, I think I love Mickey Mantle. My father smiled. We all do, kid. Back then, you could run out on the field after the game, and before anyone could stop me, I yanked a clump of grass from center right where Mickey stood, and when I got home, I placed it in a bowl on my dresser. I cut his pictures out of the sports page and pasted them in my Mickey scrapbook. Yeah, but you know how it is. In time, things change. Aunt Rose, Uncle Hammy, and Maida moved to Park Avenue. My love for Mickey was replaced by others. I'd never forget him. I still followed his career till he retired in '69. never forget him. But I, like Mickey, had moved on. As a comedian living in LA, whenever I'd get back to New York, I'd always visit Aunt Rose and Uncle Hammy. At Christmas time, she'd sing her one and only carol. My husband Hammy, he's a bum, 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 bum. She'd crack up and kiss his balding head. By the early 90s, I was doing a lot of TV and had gained some success. I flew to New York to join my parents in celebrating Aunt Rose and Uncle Hammy's 50th wedding anniversary. We were having cocktails at the St. Regis before heading to Lou Tess for dinner. I was sipping a cocktail with my father when I was suddenly drawn to a voice at another table. And once again, with the turn of a head, my world would change. There was Mickey Mantle having drinks with his sons. It was 4 years before he'd check into the Betty Ford Center. Over there, Dad, it's the Mick. I had to talk to him. I had to tell him what he meant to me as a child. I gingerly approached. Excuse me, I hope you don't mind, but I just had to tell you that you were my hero. He offered a still boyish smile, and I told him about my scrapbook and the clump of grass, and his eyes landed on my chest. Well, thank you, he said, and introduced me to his sons. Then, you look familiar. Do I know you? In his Oklahoma drawl. Well, I don't think so. I mean, I'm a comedian. That's it. I saw you. I saw you on TV, on Showtime. You're funny. Well, thank you. Eyes on my chest. Then his sons excused themselves off to somewhere else. He said, you're cuter in person, you petite little thing, you. Oh my God. Is Mickey Mantle hitting on me? No, that's crazy. Then, would you like to stay and have drinks? I don't always meet someone funny and sexy. I'm staying right here at the hotel. I looked over at Aunt Rose, who curiously looked back. I could hear her in my mind. Who's she talking to, Hammy? Doesn't he know we have dinner reservations? I told him I'd be right back. Darted over to my father. Dad, he wants me to stay and have drinks. I think he wants to sleep with me. Dad, I could sleep with Mickey Mantle. We both looked at Mickey. Aw, kid, if I could, I'd sleep with Mickey Mantle. We looked over at Aunt Rose, who exaggeratedly tapped her watch. Dad, now what? What should I do? My father thought for a beat and said, screw Mickey Mantle. Wait, I'm confused. Are you saying screw Mickey Mantle, or I should screw Mickey Mantle? My father said, I don't know. You're a grown woman. Do what you think is right. I looked at Mickey and thought, this could go so wrong. He's probably drunk. It could end ugly. destroying this childhood memory I held so dear. I looked at Aunt Rose and Uncle Hammy celebrating 50 years of something gone right. I went back to his table and said my goodbye. As I walked away, I could feel his eyes on my ass and thought, wow, Mickey Mantle couldn't get to first base. Thank you. And thank you, Anne, so much for having me. Thank you.
You know, Monica, I loved your little twist on words, which you do often. Usually people say something's gone wrong here. You were celebrating something gone right. You made the right choice, I think.
I think.
Thanks, Monica. Okay, we can we can unmute and chat or ask anyone a question if you want. I'm so thankful for everybody, all these tellers. They
Amazing stories, Anne. Just amazing. What a great lineup.
Oh yeah, thank you, Jerry. Good to see you. Yeah, they took me on quite a ride.
All
Yeah.
of us.
I can understand why Pastor Erin says she likes to see them again, because it takes time to absorb them. And often when one follows another, you don't have all the time that you need with one. So I'll look forward to seeing them again too, you all. I need any more questions, comments?
From Greg Evans, he says that that was terrific. From Deborah to all of you tellers, thank you so much for such fabulous stories. And the chat feature is now up, and so we're getting some wonderful comments and thank yous to all of the tellers. I personally would like to express my thank you for being here today. And I think Anne expressed it well. It was a journey that you took us all on, and we are so, so grateful.
So hallelujah. Yes. Yes.
Every story was so well done and had such profound lessons in them. They're beautiful, beautiful.
It sure did. Yeah.
I'm glad we ended on a chuckle because they were deep.
Monica does know how to chuckle us.
One of the comments is so much laughing and real tears. If you don't know how to access the chat feature on your tool menu, about halfway, there's a little button that says chat. And if you click on that, you'll be able to see off to the right-hand side all of these wonderful messages. Amy says it was incredibly moving, all of the tellers. And from Lorena, this has been so uplifting.
Do any of the tellers have anything they want to say? Arnold, I was so glad you shared those moments, because we're not always aware of our conditioning until something starts to tear at it and rip at it. And yeah.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, yeah. You know, I've just noticed how we're all conditioned. I used to think, heck, I'm in this culture, the United States. Then I realized, no. My family is my first culture. Then there's the neighborhood, another culture with their own expectations and behaviors. Then there's the city. Then but the family is the first culture. It teaches you, you know, how to behave, you know, what's expected. Just like you were saying in your story, how you were taught from early on, the behavior vis-a-vis, you know, Black people in South Africa. Anybody? Okay.
I wanted to say something.
Yes.
I was really moved by all of the epiphanies that you share with the audience, because they seem so relevant to that moment when you realized how differently things could have been had something else happened. And especially for you, Arnold, I really appreciate you sharing that whole story of your own transformation. I've been to Baltimore, and for you to be there and tell such a wonderful story, it's really, everyone. I've loved every single story. I'm taking something away with me from every single one. So thank you all.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much,
Deborah.
Deborah.
I think that was Deborah, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Deborah. Let's see. Oh yeah, Vicki, I love how your story turned around at the end too. And the mother finally got some thanks for toting those kids and dragging them all over the place. We do the best we can, and sometimes we get a thanks later for it, and sometimes we don't, but we still just do all we can do, the best we can. I love the idea that Abraham Lincoln in that address to Congress did say that these times, in 1862, were not like any others before. They required us to act anew, individually and in concert. And I think that's exactly what these times require of us. Because as I heard someone say, and I happen to agree with it, that it's broken. We need to rebuild. So it needs all of us and all of our different ways that we do that. The little kindnesses that you were talking about this morning, Aaron, in your sermon, the little kindnesses we do every day that, that you might think don't count much. Well, let me tell you, they do. They have lifted my spirits just to see someone, to hear someone greet me kind of nicely. It just can lift my spirits. So at any rate, I'm not quite sure why I got on that track, except for sharing stories like this too, I think helps. And Vicki, Dello, Joio, hearing exactly what happened with your mom. I mean, the dying experience has to be different for everyone. I didn't experience my mom's death like that. I mean, I experienced something else, but it's certainly a moment that to me reveals a truth about dying. Your story, it reveals a truth about dying. Now, I didn't experience it in that particular way with my mom, but I experienced that truth that you shared. And Hera, you managed to take us all through your now what's, and it all kind of added up to, took me where I am now. And you're telling stories and you're making it happen. So at any rate, you guys, I don't need to go over everybody's stories, but I loved them all. I appreciated them all. I think it's important that we go there with each other. Yeah, because it's relationships that make communities. And
it is.
Can't have a community without trying to understand someone else. And it's these stories that help me understand where you're coming from.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I'm so thankful that people are willing to share their stories like this. Yeah.
Okay. Vicki, what you said took me back too. But in Monza too. Yeah. Yes. And I loved what you said, Anne, about the little things and the impact it can make. And some of the way I think of that is there's times when I talk to someone, even a stranger, and suddenly I watch their eyes change and I can experience if they just felt seen. And the power of that is so huge. It's so huge.
Aren't you amazed sometimes that people can communicate even? I mean, we speak theoretically the same language, and yet you realize as we get older and older how so many experiences are different and how we view things around us so differently. So anything that brings us together is so precious, just amazing.
And I just wanted to say, I really appreciated, Harry, your story of kind of the shifting of perspective of seeing all of these things that have happened and looking back and saying, this is what has brought me here. So thank you to this.
Yeah,
And thank you to that. And
Yeah.
I appreciated that greatly.
I love what Harry said about hoisting up his vibes.
God.
Phrase and just think, it's time to hoist up my vibes.
Great line.
Yeah, not easy. But yeah, it reminds me of that Native American story about the Indian chief where something terrible happens. Everyone's commiserating and he goes, well, maybe. And from that terrible thing, a wonderful thing happens. And they go, oh, now it's wonderful. And he says, maybe. So, you know, nothing's good or bad. What thinking makes it so, whatever that Shakespeare quote is. And the perspectives, I just want to thank everybody. I'm so choked up because it was not only effing entertaining, every story, but so, as someone said, deep. And it's a cliche, but I'm laughing and crying and feel so spoken to in intimate ways that it's a big joy and a big happy thing.
Thank you so much, Anne. I really enjoyed every story. The storytellers were great. Thank all of you, each of you. And I've been inspired, actually, Anne, to write another story. I haven't written anything in a while. So
Good,
I'll be keeping in touch with you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank all of you.
You know, I've been learning a lot about listening lately too, because I'm in a relationship, of course, with a very close one with my husband. And I've realized silence is golden sometimes. I don't need to respond to everything. That's, and also when I'm silent, it means that I just offer him the space to keep sharing and talking. And I just realized that that space is like a chamber of energy. And
That's well put. Yeah.
and anything I say is going to change the energy in that chamber. So I have to be very careful. And sometimes silence is golden. It doesn't mean I'm not thinking or not listening, but it might mean that I'm just, the phone is ringing. Okay. At any rate, yeah, I'm learning a lot during this pandemic about listening and about just about how careful you have to be with other people's energy. You know, how careful you have to be on what you say, how you reach out to them, etc. Does anyone want to add anything? I can let everybody go if we're all through. Oh, somebody's entered the waiting room now. It's a little late.
Hopefully they will be able to go and see the video on YouTube. We will let you all know when that is up. But a big thank you to Anne for arranging all of this. A huge thank you to all of the storytellers, and a thank you to all of you for being with us today. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. Thank you for hosting. Thank you for making it special.
See you in 2023.
Great.
Thanks, Debbie.
Take care, everyone.
A good, healthy
Thank you very much.
fall for everyone.